Hello. The topic I picked was coping strategies. Stress happens to everyone at some point in their lives, whether it is at work or in their personal lives. Stress affects everyone differently. Sometimes it can cause physical problems, causing people to lose time at work or lack of concentration. There are a variety of ways stress affects people. The key is to use coping strategies to figure out what causes the stress, but more importantly, how we respond to it. By using coping strategies, we can find ways to better deal with stress to make a bad situation manageable by figuring out how to deal with it. The important statistics that I found was studies have shown that job stress costs the U.S. economy more than $100 billion per year. Another study shows that job stress has increased 20% since the 1980s. 3 learning objectives. Learn what is the cause of stress and how to find a way to control and overcome it. Learn ways to avoid or ignore the factors causing the stress. Learn how to reduce or manage stress. There are 3 strategies that can be utilized with relation to coping with stress. Each one is important and may be used to help us cope or manage our stress levels. The control strategy is taking control of a situation. It is having a conversation with someone, usually an authority, that can help change the situation. Bring attention by stating the cause of the stress and addressing the situation, whether it's feeling overwhelmed by the workload or just taking on too much responsibility. This strategy gives empowerment to the employees by taking a charge to find a resolution and managing it better. The second strategy is the escape strategy. The strategy might be used to avoid having to cope with a stressful situation that have a little or no control over the change. This may be something like a company being sold or a boss that is difficult. This approach may be used to just stay away from whatever or whoever is the source of the stress and not think about it. The third strategy is the symptom management strategy. This strategy may be the most important because it helps people find ways to reduce or deal with stress. Unfortunately, stress can cause employees to be physically sick and mentally drained. By using this coping strategy, it teaches us ways to cope with stress by using meditation, relaxation techniques, medications, and exercise. It is extremely important to find ways to cope with the stress to avoid bringing it home or making us sick. The key takeaways. Coping strategies are extremely important to help us manage stress in the workplace and our personal lives. Everyone deals and reacts to stress differently. People cope differently based on their situation and their personality. There is no one way to cope with a situation. The key is to approach it and find a way to alleviate it so that it helps individuals mentally and physically to have the best outcomes. Finally, you will never get away from stress. It is how we cope with it which makes it important. By using coping strategies to help us deal with stress, it helps us change our behaviors, how we respond, and maybe to overcome some of these things. Coping strategies empowers us to take control of how we respond to stress and also how we allow it to affect us. My discussion questions that I came up with. Which of the 3 strategies do you think would best work for you and how you cope with stress? Do you find yourself feeling overwhelmed? Is it what you expected from us? People cope differently based on their situation and their personality. There is no one way to cope with a situation. The key is to approach it and find a way to alleviate it so that it helps individuals mentally and physically to have the best outcomes. Finally, you will never get away from stress. It is how we cope with it which makes it important. By using coping strategies to help us deal with stress, it helps us change our behaviors, how we respond, and maybe to overcome some of these things. Coping strategies empowers us to take control of how we respond to stress and also how we allow it to affect us. The discussion questions that I came up with are, which of the 3 strategies do you think would work best for you to cope with stress? Do you find yourself feeling overwhelmed, and what is expected from us today? If so, why? How do you manage your stress? How does stress impact our behavior? How has the pandemic impacted your level of stress, and how has it changed your coping mechanisms? What can the workforce do to help their employees manage stress? Thank you for listening to my video about coping strategies, and I hope you enjoyed.